Hi everyone, it's Heath Davis Havlick back with another episode of Enneagram Book Reviews. And today I'm excited because I am talking about my very favorite Enneagram book. I think it's a lot of people's favorite, and it is The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. This was not the first Enneagram book that I read. It was the third or fourth, I think, but it's my favorite because not only is it really comprehensive, but it just has a lot of heart. It's very full of grace and compassion. And so I'm excited to talk about it today. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's really the gold standard for me. I mean, it's the one that I always recommend to people when they say, what's a good Enneagram book? It's not quick. It's not easy necessarily, but it's written very accessibly and very structured. It's very orderly, so you know exactly what you're going to see with each one of the types as you go through the book. And it's got a lot of additional material as well that sets the stage. That's why I love it. It's really comprehensive. There are other books that you can start with and just get a very basic overview, and that's fine. But you have to move on from there, and this book has all of it. It has the introductory material, and it has a lot more as well. So let's dive in. I love at the beginning that it talks about the ancient roots and the modern insights of the Enneagram, because there's a lot of confusion around that. Some people think that this system is thousands of years old, and that's not really the case. There have been various ideas and sets of 9 that have shown up all throughout human history, it seems like. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the Enneagram has been around that long. So it lays the foundation and just gives some clarity about where the Enneagram came from and how it came to be in its current form. And as we know, more and more information keeps coming up about the Enneagram in new and different ways. So I wanted to point out a few things. One of them is that there's a whole chapter on cultivating awareness right at the beginning of the book, and that's because awareness is essential to doing Enneagram work, really to doing any kind of inner work, personal development. So that is just an invaluable chapter that I really love. Then there's a whole chapter on the Triadic self, and that is great because it talks about not only the 3 centers of intelligence, but it talks about the harmonic groups, and it talks about the Hornevian triads as well. So you get a lot of different ways of understanding how the different sets interact and how they influence how you show up in the world. And then we get to the levels of development. This is so key, and it's something that you're only going to find in this book and in books that then use the material, because Riso and Hudson developed the levels of development, that sounds strange, by themselves. I mean, they discovered it and then they investigated it and found out more about it until they were able to put it into this really good structure. So that is super key. Here's just the main little visual you can have of that. And it talks about the structures of the levels and how your really your emotional health and your level of awareness are what create your level of development, and that it can go up or down. And of course, we want it to go up. So this is a really just key, essential part of the Enneagram. It helps you understand why some people could be a type 3 but look very different from another type 3. And it's not just because of the wing. It's not just because of the instincts, which they also talk about, but because of the level of development that that person is at. It can help you to sort of diagnose yourself as well, where you are in that level structure, and see when you end up going down, why is that? And when you're able to rise up, why is that? So it's a really wonderful diagnostic tool. It also can help you understand where other people are at and how to deal compassionately with them. So then it goes on from there, and then we just get a detailed account of each one of the 9 types. And so every chapter has the main name that Riso and Hudson give it. You know, every teacher or every school seems to have its own names for the types. So for instance, for chapter 2, or sorry, for the type 2 in this chapter, the name is the helper. And so then there'll be a bunch of other names down here along the side that could also apply to that type. Then we come over here and we get the basic fear of each type. We get the basic desire that arises out of that fear for each type. And we learn the superego message. All through this book, there are wonderful little vignettes of people of the type being discussed. And that also gives you a really wonderful idea of what it's like to inhabit that type and the struggles that they have, and also the victories. There's a childhood pattern that each one of the types tends to follow, so that is discussed as well. Then they talk about the wings and what those look like, both in the healthy, which not very many people are at, and the average levels of development. Then it talks about the 3 primary instinctual drives of human beings, the sexual, social, and self-preservation instincts, and how those instincts, if they are dominant, can really give each type a different flavor. That's really good information. Then we also have the wake-up call for each type. We have all kinds of wonderful little exercises to do for each one of the types. And really, they encourage you to do all of those exercises regardless of what type you are, because remember, we have all 9 types in us. It's just that one of them is more dominant and is our home base. So they talk about the social role for each type and just some of the basic ways that the type shows up. Then they talk about how each type goes to stress, what that looks like for each of them, and what it looks like for each of the types to go to a place of security and peace as well. They have a red flag for each type, which is the thing that is like a warning sign you need to pay attention to, and that it's something like a turning point where you can either go up or down on the levels. And if you can recognize that moment, you have a much greater opportunity to make that choice to go up. And then there are practices that help each one of the types develop. So helpful. And how to build on the strengths of each one of the types. And then it talks about the path to integration, again, going to that security point and what that looks like as a person becomes more and more aware, and then how to transform each one of the personalities into essence, into really the core of your being, who you really are deep down inside. Then at the end, okay, there's an entire chapter on the Enneagram and spiritual practice, because that's really what we're going for, right? At least that's what I'm going for. That's what my whole life and this channel and my book and my website, all that stuff is about. It's about integrating knowledge of the Enneagram into your spiritual practice. And so I love how simple this is. And again, this is not about a religion. Any path that you're on is going to be augmented by what you know from learning the Enneagram. I, of course, come from a Christian perspective, and that's what I advocate, of course. But what I love about the Enneagram is that it literally will help any human being, because it's based on psychology and on things that people have just noticed over the millennia from being humans and watching other humans. So the 3 things that they recommend in your daily practice are becoming present and aware as much as possible, observing your personality in action, and you can only do that once you know your personality and sort of learn your own tricks, right? And then the 3rd thing is, as much as possible, as much as you're able to not give in to your impulses, right? Not acting those out, those things that your personality always wants you to do, your default behavior, essentially. So that's just a quick rundown. I know that based on my analytics, people don't like long videos too much. So that's all I'm going to say about this amazing, awesome book, The Wisdom of the Enneagram, Don Richard Riso and Russ Hudson. I recommend that you pick up a copy. There's a link below that you can click on. It'll take you right to Amazon where you can buy it. And let me know what you want to see a review about, a new book or an older book. This, of course, is an older book, but it's a standard, and it's really so good to have in your arsenal. I have read it about 3 times. I'm going through it with my Enneagram group that meets once a month. Again, we've gone through it once before already, but it's so packed with good stuff that we just keep going back to it. So if you like the video, please give it a little like. If you want some more Enneagram book reviews, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you click the little bell next to it, then you'll always get notifications when I submit a new video. It's usually going to be about once a week. And again, you can give suggestions for books in the comments as well. So let's make this interactive. I want to hear what you guys want as well. All right. Hope the rest of your day is great. Bye-bye.